Resting your tendon is the reason it still hurts. I'm not being provocative. I'm telling you what the research actually shows. Because a tendon is not a muscle, and it does not heal like one. A muscle wants rest. A tendon wants almost the exact opposite. And right now, most people with tendon pain are giving their body the one signal that guarantees the problem stays exactly where it is. There's a Swedish surgeon who proved this completely by accident. He was actively trying to wreck his own Achilles tendon. Instead, it recovered. Completely. So when people ask me, why won't my shoulder heal? Why does my elbow still click every time I reach for something? Why has this heel been sore for 8 months when I've barely walked on it? This is the answer, and it's not the one you've been given. By the end of this, you're going to understand your own body better than anyone has ever explained it to you. I'm going to walk you through the exact protocol that produced recovery in 82% of people with long-term Achilles pain, step by step, with equipment you already own. And I'm going to show you the 15-gram trick that doubles your body's collagen production, if you time it right. Let me give you the short answer now, so you're not waiting on me. The signal your tendon needs is load. Controlled, slow, deliberate load. Rest doesn't send that signal. Rest sends silence. But if I stop there, you'll try it for 4 days and quit. So let me show you why this works. Because once you understand what's actually happening inside that tendon, you won't be able to unsee it. Let's start with what we're even talking about, because most people have this wrong. You have muscles. You have bones. Tendons are the cables in between. When your muscle contracts, it doesn't move your bone directly. It pulls on a tendon, and the tendon pulls the bone. That's how every movement you make happens. Every step, every stare, every time you reach up for a plate on the top shelf. Here's what's remarkable about these cables. They are absurdly strong. Your Achilles tendon can handle well over 1,000 pounds of force when you run. Sit with that. A structure about the width of your finger, absorbing half a ton, thousands of times a day, for decades, without a single complaint. And they're not just strong. They're springy. When you step down and push off, your tendon stores energy like a stretched rubber band, then fires it back to launch you forward. But that strength doesn't come from the material. It comes from the arrangement. Pick up a brand new rope and look closely at it. Every fiber runs straight, parallel, all pointing the same direction, all pulling together. That's what the collagen inside a healthy tendon looks like. Straight lines, perfectly aligned, sharing the load across thousands of fibers at once. Now picture that same rope after a dog has spent a week chewing it. Same material, same rope, but the fibers are scattered now, crossing each other, kinked, pointing in random directions. Some are doing all the work. Most are doing none. That is a damaged tendon. Not missing material, disorganized material. And here's the part almost nobody understands. Your body is bad at combing those fibers back into straight lines on its own. It won't do it just because time passes. It needs a specific instruction, an instruction most people never give because they've been told the opposite. Hold on to that. We'll come back to it. So why don't tendons heal like a cut on your skin? Slice your finger opening a package. A week later, it's essentially gone. Roll your ankle. It swells, it bruises, it's ugly for 2 weeks, then it's fine. Pull a muscle, and you're back in a month. But a tendon? 6 months later, you could still be babying it. 8 months. 2 years. Why? Because healing needs delivery. Blood is your delivery system. It carries oxygen, nutrients, and the repair cells that rebuild damaged tissue. When you cut your skin and it bleeds, that bleeding is your repair crew arriving at the job site with materials. Tendons barely have any blood supply at all. Scientists call them hypovascular. Very few vessels running through them. They are the job site at the end of a long, half-finished dirt road. The crew exists. The materials exist. They just can't get there. And it gets more specific than that. In your Achilles tendon, There's a stretch roughly 2 to 6 centimeters above your heel bone. Researchers who dissected and imaged these tendons found this midsection has the worst blood supply of the entire structure. They even described dead patches, where the supply barely connects at all. Now guess where Achilles tendons rupture most often? That exact section. The spot with the least delivery is the spot that fails the most. That is not a coincidence. That is cause and effect, sitting right there in front of you. So when you injure that area, the repair crew can't reach it. The materials never show up. And the damage just sits there, month after month, while you wait for something that isn't coming. This is why treating a tendon like a pulled muscle is one of the most expensive mistakes you can make with your own body. If you follow sports at all, you've seen this play out. Achilles ruptures have taken out some of the biggest names in basketball and football over the last 15 years. Athletes with the best medical teams money can buy, in peak condition, dropping mid-game with no contact at all. But it isn't a sports problem. It happens to accountants, to grandmothers stepping off a curb, to a man playing pickleball on a Saturday for the first time in 3 years. Same tendon, same starved midsection, same outcome. If you've had a shoulder, elbow, heel, or knee nagging you for more than 3 months, comment which one below. I want to see which is most common, because I suspect I already know. This next study flips everything you think you know about training and rest, and I'd genuinely like you to send it to someone. We all know exercise builds tissue. You load it, it gets stronger. Simple. Except researchers tracked what actually happens inside a human tendon in the hours after a hard session and found something strange. When you train, your body ramps up collagen production to rebuild that tendon stronger. Good. That's what you want. But it simultaneously ramps up collagen breakdown. And the breakdown starts faster and peaks earlier than the building does. Read that again. For the first stretch of time after you load a tendon, you are dismantling more than you're building. Your tendon is temporarily weaker after your workout, not stronger. It's only around the 36-hour mark that the equation flips and you finally end up in the black. Now connect the dots with me. What does the average person actually do? They hammer the same tendon every single day. Or they feel a twinge, decide to push through it, and do the identical thing tomorrow. Or, on the other end, they feel it, stop entirely, and never send any building signal at all. Both groups end up in the same place. The breakdown outpaces the rebuild, day after day, for years. They're standing in a hole, still digging, wondering why they're not getting out. Here's the part that should get your attention, especially if you don't have any pain at all right now. Researchers studying people with long-term tendon pain found the abnormal breakdown had quietly been running for something like 10 to 15 years before that person ever felt a single symptom. 10 to 15 years. Your tendons can be coming apart for over a decade while you feel absolutely nothing. No nerve ending screaming. No swelling. No warning. And then one day you reach for a suitcase or step off a curb, and it finally announces itself. By the time you feel it, this is not a new injury. This is the straw that broke the camel's back, and the camel's been loaded for 11 years. Which is exactly why what I'm about to show you matters, even if nothing hurts today. Before we get to solutions, there's something you deserve to know, and I'd like you to actually go check your medicine cabinet after this. There's a common class of antibiotics called fluoroquinolones. You may know them by their brand names. They're prescribed constantly for urinary tract infections, sinus infections, respiratory infections. Studies have found that people who take these carry a meaningfully higher risk of rupturing their Achilles tendon, particularly in the months afterward. Some research puts that elevated risk several times higher than baseline. And it doesn't always show up immediately. In some cases, the damage surfaced weeks, even months, after the final dose. So someone finishes a course in March, blows out an Achilles in June playing with their grandkids, and never in a lifetime connects those two events. Why? These drugs appear to interfere with collagen synthesis and disrupt the enzymes your tendons rely on to remodel themselves. They interrupt the exact process we've been talking about this whole time. And if you're over 60 or taking corticosteroids alongside them, the risk climbs further. Now hear me clearly. I am not telling you to stop taking any medication. Nothing here is medical advice, ever. But you deserve to know this connection exists, so you can have an informed conversation with the doctor who prescribed it. Because most people are never told. That's what getting to the root cause actually means. Your body is one connected system. What you put into it shows up everywhere, including in a cable behind your ankle. Alright, enough of the bad news. Let's get to what actually works. Tendons can absolutely recover. You just have to give them the signal they've been asking for. And the signal is not rest. I know everything in you wants to rest a painful tendon. It's the most natural instinct in the world. But remember what we established. Rest doesn't reorganize anything. Rest just lets those chewed-up rope fibers settle exactly where they landed, tangled and weak. You're not healing during that time. You're setting. The signal your tendon needs is load. A very specific kind of load. Which brings us to a Swedish surgeon named Alfredsson. He had severe Achilles pain. At the time, the standard treatment was surgery, but his own hospital had a long waiting list, and he wasn't near the front of it. So he made a decision that sounds insane, and turned out to be one of the luckiest accidents in sports medicine. He decided to deliberately destroy the tendon, make it so bad they'd have to move him up the list. So every single day he did brutal, heavy, slow heel drops off a step, trying to finish the job. It got better. Not slightly, completely. He never had the surgery. So he did what a good researcher does. He studied it properly. And in the published protocol, this specific style of loading produced recovery and satisfaction in around 82% of patients with long-standing Achilles pain. People who had been hurting for months, some for years. That's the 82% I promised you. Here's how you do it. It's called an eccentric heel drop, and it costs nothing. You need a stable step. An actual stair works. That little kitchen stool you use to reach the top shelf works. Roughly 12 to 18 inches high, and ideally near something you can hold for balance. Stand on it with the balls of your feet on the edge, and your heels hanging off the back, over open air. Rise up onto your toes, and use your good leg, or both legs, to get up there. Going up is not the point. Now shift all your weight onto the painful leg, and slowly lower that heel down, below the level of the step, until you feel a deep stretch through the calf and the tendon. Slow, 3 to 4 seconds on the way down. That lowering is the entire exercise. That slow lowering under load is called an eccentric contraction. The muscle is lengthening while it's still working. And that specific motion is what tells those scattered fibers, line up, point this direction, get organized again. It is a mechanical instruction, and your tendon is built to obey it. Do it twice, once with your knee straight, once with it slightly bent. Those two versions load different portions of the tendon, and the original protocol used both. Now, volume. The original called for 180 repetitions a day, split into sets, for 12 weeks. I know how that sounds. But newer research found a lower volume. Essentially do what you can tolerate, worked about as well. So don't be a hero. Be consistent. Consistent beats heroic every time with tendons. And on pain, a moderate ache during and after is normal and expected here. This is not like a muscle, where pain means stop. But sharp pain, or pain clearly worse the next morning, means back off the load. And if you have a full tear, sudden severe pain, or you heard a pop, stop taking advice off YouTube and go get a real diagnosis from a professional. Now here's where it gets interesting, because we can make that same work go further. Remember the problem. The job site at the end of the bad road. Almost no blood flow. So the trick is to flood your bloodstream with raw materials at the one moment that road actually opens. Right around exercise, when blood flow to the area temporarily increases. Researchers had people take about 15 grams of gelatin, along with roughly 50 milligrams of vitamin C, 1 hour before exercising. The result? They roughly doubled the markers of collagen synthesis in their blood compared to placebo. Doubled. The vitamin C isn't optional, by the way. It's a required cofactor. Your body physically cannot assemble collagen properly without it. The gelatin supplies the amino acid building blocks, glycine and proline. Think of it this way. Gelatin delivers the bricks. Vitamin C is the crew that lays them. You need both on site. So the play is simple. About an hour before your loading work, get your collagen source and your vitamin C in. Then do your heel drops with those raw materials already peaking in your blood. You are delivering the bricks to the job site at the exact moment the road is finally open. That's the kind of thing I love. Small, cheap, backed by real human research, and almost nobody is doing it because they've simply never heard it. So the obvious question is, what's the easiest way to actually do that every day? And stay with me right after this, because there's one mistake that quietly undoes everything we've just covered, and I don't want you making it. When it comes to collagen, not all products are equal. The one I use is the brand I've linked below. It's from 100% pasture-raised, grass-fed cattle, and it provides type 1, 2, and 3 collagen, the types that support tendons, ligaments, and connective tissue. 1 scoop a day. Hydrolyzed peptides, so it dissolves into coffee, a smoothie, or plain water. What I appreciate just as much as what's not in it. No fillers, no dairy, no soy, no GMO, and it's third-party tested, which genuinely matters with collagen. There's 20% off for people watching here. First link in the description, or scan the code on screen. Full money-back guarantee, so there's no real risk in trying it. Works out to less than a cup of coffee a day. Now let's get back to it. Here's the mistake I promised. People start the loading protocol, feel better in 3 weeks, and immediately stop. Understand what's happening in those 3 weeks. The pain signal quiets down long before the tissue is actually reorganized. Pain is a terrible progress report. It tells you about irritation, not about structure. The fiber realignment we've been talking about takes months, not weeks. That's why the original protocol ran 12 weeks and not 3. So if you feel good at week 4 and quit, you've turned the volume down on the alarm without fixing what set it off. Then it comes back in the spring, and you conclude the exercise didn't work. It worked. You stopped early. Finished the 12 weeks. Let's pull this together. Your tendons barely get any blood. They can quietly come apart for over a decade before you feel a thing. And when you finally do feel it, your instinct is to rest. And rest is exactly what leaves those fibers tangled. But now you know the way out. Load it, don't baby it. Go slow on the lowering. Feed it the raw materials an hour before. Give it a day between sessions. And finish the full 12 weeks, not the 3 that feel good. Do that consistently, and that clicking shoulder, that cranky elbow, that heel that's been nagging you since spring, it can genuinely turn around. Not overnight. Biology heals on its own schedule, not on your vacation calendar. But it turns around. Which of these surprised you the most? The 10 to 15-year silent breakdown, the antibiotic connection, or the fact that rest was the problem? Tell me below. Subscribe if you'd like more of this. And send this to the one person you know who's been resting a sore shoulder for 6 months and getting nowhere. It might be the most useful thing you do for them this year. And stay with me, because there's a related piece to this. We've all heard that 10,000 steps a day is the target for health and fat loss. I'm a huge fan of walking, but there's something that takes about 10 minutes and does considerably more. For your energy, your cravings, and the very tendons we just talked about. I just released a full video on it. Click the one on your screen in a few seconds, and I'll see you over there.